Hi everyone, welcome back to Intro to Python Coding. My name is Andrea and I'm a Digital Services Librarian at Richmond Public Library. So 2 weeks ago, we looked at downloading idle, Python's editor, and using variables, user inputs, and strings to make a simple Mad Lib game. And if you missed that session, you can head back into the recordings on our YouTube channel and watch that before you join us here. This week, we'll look at making a word guessing game using lists, conditionals, and the random function. And this will also have a user input function as well. This is pretty much an easier to code version of Hangman. Let's start by taking a look at each of these concepts. So I have idle open again this week. Let's start by looking at lists. So a list is a collection of data or items contained within a square bracket. They are numbered, so you can print out different things in your list without having to make a bunch of variables, which could make your code way more complicated than it needs to be. Let's look at an example. So let's say I wanted to make a list of chocolate. And since everything in my brackets is a string as well, I want to make sure that I do have quotation marks around each. And these are also going to be separated by a comma. So now that I have my list, I can print out each item by the number. The list will start at 0 instead of 1, which can be a bit confusing. If I want to print out the first item of my list, I'm going to type in print chocolate 0. And I am using a Mac, so all my functions are in the top bar. If you're using a Windows app, all of these functions will be within the app window itself. And we can see I just printed Kit Kat. We can also pull out random parts of the list for games. You could code a flipping a coin or playing a game of rock, paper, scissors against a computer. To do this, we're going to go back up to the top of our code and import the random library. And I'm going to get rid of our chocolate list now. So a coin has 2 sides. And I can print, so my flip is a random choice of coin. And we'll print our flip. And so we got a random choice, which is heads. And since there's only 2 items in our list for coin, because coins only have 2 sides, probably not going to get a huge amount of variation in your random choices, but if you had a longer list that we're going to look at next, you'll probably get a couple more options. And let's look at conditionals now. So a conditional essentially tells our code if an input occurs, then there will be a certain outcome. We could add in a user component where the player enters a guess for what the flip will be. If they give the correct answer, the computer will give them a message like congrats, or a different message if they're wrong. Just keep in mind that Python is case sensitive. Now that we've looked at these essential elements, let's start coding our game. We'll start, of course, with importing the random function. So my code is empty again, and I'm starting with import random, and this is going to import our random library. Now keep in mind, you can also add in hashtags or pound keys, and this will keep track of information as you go through. It doesn't come up in your code when you run it, it's just so you can keep notes on what you're doing as you go through. So I'm just going to keep track of what each of my functions do as I'm going through. And for my list, I'm just going to have different kinds of food. You can also have a random selection of words or any other theme you'd like. And I'm going to do 12 different options just so we get a lot of variety when we run our game. You can do the same if you'd like, or you can do less or more. It's completely up to you. That is the selection of my words that we're going to be selecting from. And now I want to have, let's change this to foods. So I want to have the ability to choose one food out of my list. At random. So I'll say food this time without the S. Now I want to be able to say at the beginning of the game what I want my players to do. So I want them to guess the letters in the word. And I'm going to give it a certain amount of turns. You don't have to do this, but it makes it less of a game if you don't have turns in. So I'm going to have turns equal 12. You can do less or more, up to you. All right, and now we're going to have our conditionals. So the first one we're going to be using is while. So this is essentially saying while our turns are greater than 0. And so this is going to keep running until we run out of turns, and this is going to be the basis for the game. So we want to say This counts the amount of times our player is wrong. And this is what we're going to be using. So you can see that our functions in orange are going to be doing things within our code. They're a little bit different from the rest of our words. So this is going to search for the letters and characters, within words, and because this is a coding language, they're actually going to be referred to as characters, so you'll be able to enter a number as well if you wanted to. Not to forget colons. And we want to say if our player enters the right letters, then we're going to print out those letters. And this doesn't have to be in any particular order. They'll just come out and place them whenever the correct letter is entered. So we have our if-then format here. If your guess is correct, then it will print your guess. If you are wrong, so we're going to say else. Going to just reprint the lines where the letters go, so it'll keep count of all our characters within the words, and then we'll add one to wrong. And if wrong does not equal 0, we're going to print you win. And we're going to print what the word is. And just keep in mind, like before, because the list item, want food here, because the list item is sort of like a variable, you don't want to actually enter it within your brackets in your string. You want it to have it outside of your string. And our guess is a variable that's based on the inputs of what our player is guessing. So guess a character, guess a letter. And our guesses are going to increase the individual guess. And essentially, this is going to add something. So if a guess is not in a word, it's going to decrease the amount of turns that we have. And we'll also print it out wrong. And let them know how many turns they have left. And if they ever run out of turns, that will end the game. All right, so let's give this a try. Forgot to put my colon in it. As I said, it's very important. All right, so I realized when I was running this, originally I had guess in here, but you actually want this to be the variable that's your random choice. Otherwise it'll just continuously run till you got the word right, and then try to quit. So just make sure you have your random choice here. It's not guesses. All right, so you can see now that I have my word guessing game running, and I can enter a letter. I have little lines that count the amount of letters in each of my words. All right, so each time I guess a letter, it'll go on one of the lines and replace that. And at the end, it'll tell me what the word is. And the last thing I'm gonna put in is I'm just going to exit the program after each time so it doesn't try to replay each time. So let's give that a try. Great, that's perfect, and it's asking if I want to kill the program, and I do. So I'm just gonna hit OK, and it's gonna return me to my editing module. So the next layer you could add into this is you could add in a play again function. So you'll have to add in another conditional to make sure that you can go back up to the top and it reselects a random word there. So that's it for Intro to Python Coding for this week. Join me back here in 2 weeks. We'll be working on a new project and introducing you to some new concepts, and we'll see you then.